It's time to pull those belts tight, race fans. The front stretch is coming at you, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Now, here's Dan Taylor and Dirk Houston.
Well, good morning to you, race fans, and welcome to the Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs, online at joeskarting.com. There is still time to get entered into the Hammerhead drawing. All you have to do, go down to Joe's Karting today before, I think we got a couple of weeks. I think that giveaway is in the middle of December. But just head down and ask for the Hammerhead races. All you got to do is, the great thing is, I say all you have to do, the great thing you get to do is race and enter into the drawing. It's like a win-win for everybody. You get to race, you possibly get to win a Hammerhead, you get the experience of going down to Joe's Karting. It's a lot of fun.
Merry Christmas to me with a Hammerhead.
There you go. And by the way, a belated happy Thanksgiving. We recorded on Wednesday night, so we haven't got to enjoy our turkey dinners. We felt it was best to record before Thanksgiving because we would just sound fatter over the air.
Oh, and we don't need to sound any worse than we already do.
But a happy Thanksgiving to all of you, and starting off with a little bit of a somber note. Last Saturday night on November 18th, we lost a local legend. Bill Rick passed away. Obviously, we'd had the show already recorded, and so we weren't able to pay homage to him. We were working on doing a Bill Rick memorial show today, but because of the holidays and everyone's just working on a shorter week, we just weren't able to get it together in time. So thank you to you, Dirk. Oftentimes I try to shove a round peg in a square hole and make it work, and you're just like, hey, it's not a big deal. Let's do this right. Let's wait another week. We'll get everybody in here. We're working on getting Bob Kaziski and Joe Kaziski, and gosh, even Steve would be great to have in here. And I'd love to get Dave Chase to come in. I know Dave raced with him in the past, and then Stan Caesar and Luke Cochran, the Sunset Outlaw. We're gonna get a bunch of guys in here and just talk Bill Rick.
A little round table.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. So we want to make sure and do it right, and so that's going to be our plan. Is next Sunday's show is going to be the Bill Rick Memorial Show. Not to get too dark and sad and kind of darken your Sunday, because we always like to lighten it up with all the stuff that goes on in this world, but we think we need to pay homage to a guy who passed away that was a big contributor to what we do today.
Absolutely.
The amount of racers that he contributed to the sport. I mean, people grew up wanting to be like him, and because of watching him while they were out at their racetrack watching Bill turn laps, they eventually got their own car and started racing, and now we're talking about Joe Kaziski, and Joe was probably destined to be in a car anyways, but just watching Bill and Kyle Burke and all these guys that go and race, they probably were influenced by Bill Rick.
All these racing farmers. That's
all
what
right.
Bill was. So, it's a fact.
Sunday was a lot of fun. We do appreciate everybody who made it down to Homestead for the viewing party and made it down to Quaker Steak and Lube.
For the Homestead viewing party.
Thank you. Words are tough. I had lunch, or I got together with Rick Havenridge earlier this week, and he was giving me a little bit of grief because oftentimes I trip up on my words. But he reminded me, and I'll remind you. Oftentimes you guys undermine when I stand, so we don't have to worry about that too much. But yeah, thank you everybody who came down to Quaker Steak and Lube for the Homestead viewing party, and thank you to Quaker Steak for giving us the room. We had a nice crowd. We had the TV on, the audio was going. We had great specials, and I partook in a little bit of the specials. Enjoyed the wings and the beer and all the mozzarella sticks. Oh my God, those mozzarella sticks are delicious.
Nancy and Eric won the 2 pools we had for the race.
Yeah, Chris gave us some pools, some tickets to be able to do some pools. So we just did some real quick, simple stuff there. With being in Iowa, we allow gambling in Iowa. Although I don't think it's technically gambling because
we have gambling in Nebraska
too. Yeah, it's wagering into a pool. You guys do have Big Red Keno, don't you?
Oh, we got horse racing and all kinds of stuff, dude.
But yeah, so a lot of good time. I got to meet a lot of the fun people, and some of them even like Holly Humphrey. She signed up for one of those, but she signed as Holly Larson. So I saw Holly and I thought, I wonder if that's Holly Humphrey. And then it was Larson, and I was like, oh, never mind. And then a couple of days later, she messaged me, and I'm like, what, you're Holly Larson, not Holly Humphrey? So she came down, and a lot of great people came down, and we really do appreciate it. We got to sit down and talk with Luke and Stan and oh, man, all the people that came down and supported us. That was a lot of fun. And
passed out a lot of trivia prizes.
And then we watched one heck of a race. I think we passed out like 20 trivia prizes. that day.
Probably.
And I was going through cataloging all of them because I try to keep track of where I give away all this stuff so I can kind of account for myself. And it didn't put a dent in our prize vault.
Oh, no, we still got a lot of stuff there.
We still have over 200 items, and I've been mailing stuff out all week, getting them out to all the winners for the top 15. Once we get back from Thanksgiving break, I'll be working on the 16th through 30th, and then a couple of them down to the 30th. If you consistently picked, there was some people that dropped off at when the chase started, and then a couple of weeks into the chase. But if you didn't finish out the season consistently, then I probably won't be contacting you to get a prize because you didn't finish out the season. So, and I think we're going to send out some contingency prizes too, like perfect seasons. If you made picks all season long, you'll get another pick at the prize vault. So little things like that. But we have a lot of stuff left to give away, and I do appreciate. Once again, thank you, Dirk. By the way, I don't say thank you enough to you for coming out and helping me keep my head straight.
Well, I also want to say congratulations to Orlando Adams. I mean, our championship in our fantasy league went just as Carl Edwards' fantasy or championship went in his fantasy league, probably, I guess.
I could tell you there was a table that is not fans of Joey Logano this year. Yeah, so the way it ended up rolling out, and I feel horrible for Chet Stambaugh because for the most of the chase, he had it locked up. Not really locked up, but he had a comfortable lead. He was doing really well for himself. Goes into Homestead, decides he's going to take Carl Edwards, which, to be honest with you, up until 10 to go, up until that restart, that was looking like a sound pick because Johnson was sent to the back early in the race. He wasn't really making his way up. Once he got up into the top 5, he kind of stayed around that 5th, 10th, 12th area.
All those cars were all pretty much equal up there on the front. It's whoever got to the point and got the clean air.
Right, and Carl was looking strong. I took, or my girlfriend took Carl. I told her to take Carl because I thought he was really going to be the winner. He was definitely a favorite, which was a big shakeup in the points, by the way. And when that contact with Joey Logano happened, he ends up finishing 34th, I think 34th. Brad Keselowski 35th, Martin Truex Jr. 36th. Yeah, he ends up being relegated to just 7 points. And those who took Jimmie Johnson stressed all race long, but man, that last run, what a move. Let's go back to the Joey Logano contact. Did you see any faults on anybody? I mean, we love to cast blame or to assign fault if it's anybody's. Do you see anybody having fault?
No, Joey had a little bit of a run. There is no out of bounds, and he was going to try and go in low, and Carl went to block him, and they got together. I mean, Carl went over. I mean, you talk about sportsmanship. He went over and high-fived Joey's crew and talked to his crew chief, took the blame for it. You know, he wouldn't have lifted if it was him trying to make the move, you know. We
talk about it all the time. Inside 10 to go, you got to do everything you possibly can. And it's ramped up when it's 10 to go in the season. And the guy that's trying to get the spot from you is battling you for the championship.
Correct.
You're right. There's no fault on anybody. Carl was just hoping and praying that Joey would lift, burp the throttle a little bit, and they would go back to racing, but that's not happening. And honestly, when that happened, I thought, that's it. Joey Logano's got this locked up because he just came in and got 4 fresh. Did he get 4 fresh or 2 fresh? I think he got 4, right?
I don't remember what Joey took. I'm thinking they were all taking 4 at that point.
Well, because Joey came in before, and then that caution came out. And did he have to come back down and get that damage fixed?
He did come down. He didn't have to, but he did come down.
That was the one he came down, and he got 4 fresh. And we thought, oh, no, now he's done. But then all of a sudden, he restarts 4th, 5th, 6th, somewhere around in there because then the cars that were in front of him when he cycled through came down pit road and got adjustments too, but we still thought he was going to be farther back in the pack, but then all of a sudden when they racked the field and everyone's ready to go coming out of 4, it was like he's within the top 8. He was
5th or 7th, somewhere like that. He was on the inside row, 5th or 7th.
And then that restart happened, and then that was when Ricky Stenhouse got turned into the wall, right? Because that brought out an immediate another caution. And all of a sudden, Joey's up there in the top 4, and you're thinking, oh my, here we go. This may be Joey Logano's chase all of a sudden. But what another restart by Jimmie Johnson. Listen, you can't say it enough. And for those Johnson haters out there, listen, we'll just talk about this for a minute. Stop. You got to stop hating on the guy. He's not a cheater. He plays in the same arena that everyone else does. His crew chief's not a cheater. Everybody
Well.
out there is pushing the limits. Everybody in dirt is pushing the limits.
The car was deemed legal before the race and after the race.
Thank you. You could even say he got handicapped because he had to go start in the back of the field,
when
and he had
Chad
to work.
tried to cheat,
Right.
and got caught.
It's just when he's got less fresh tires than everybody around him, but he is still able to find a way to get that car to move through the corner, slide up in front of Larson, and then he took the clean air, and there was no catching him.
And, everybody that's trying to compare him to the King or the Intimidator, you might as well stop that too.
Yeah.
The racing now is so much different than it was back then. I think Dale Earnhardt would have done very well in this knock 'em out format because he would have knocked him out. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
I don't know what Richard Petty would have done in this type of format. Nobody's ever going to come close to his 200 wins. It's just not going to happen, especially since there's only 36 races a year.
Yeah.
I mean, there used to be 70-plus races a year.
Mathematically, it's a long shot. And to be honest with you, I hope nobody does because that means they have to win
a lot of races.
Well over 80-90% of the races every year.
Well, no, they have to win 10 races a year for 20 straight years.
True. That's true. God, that math is true.
And
that's
Nebraska math. I know you're from Iowa.
But even then, we talk about this year, Jimmie Johnson had the most wins in the season with 5. This was one of the years that we had 5 guys going into Homestead with 4 wins, which typically we at least have 1 or 2 guys with 6 wins. 5-6 wins. I know the last year I remember that really had a lot of wins was Kenseth. The year he switched to Joe Gibbs, he had 7 wins that year and didn't win the championship. But most of the time, your champions got 4 or 5 wins. They got to double it, and that's. I guess Martin Truex Jr. could do that if they could just get the bad luck shook out of their pit stops.
Yeah, I don't know when the last time was. I'd really have to go back and dig. It's been a long time since somebody had double-digit wins in that series.
So you hinted on a little bit there. You talked about a little bit there. Johnson his car was deemed during pre-race inspection to have the penalty was illegal body modifications. NASCAR doesn't come out and tell us what. It could have been something as simple as those side skirts. Remember a couple of years ago, we had that big issue with side skirts getting pulled out on pit stops. They'd flare right there by the muffler.
Right in front of the tire.
Right in front of the tire, and it would give them a little bit of an aero advantage. If they catch the teams doing that, that's an illegal body modification.
Well, and
keep
just
in mind,
who'd they catch a couple weeks ago? I think it was Keselowski's team, was it maybe, where a guy just basically leaned on the quarter panel and caved it in a little bit? And
the Jackman, that was a real popular thing last year, was when the Jackman would go to grab the tire from the rear tire changer, he would throw his hip into that sidewall and dent that in, and it would
in front of the tire.
It would cause this is the littlest of things. It would cause a low pressure area, which would stabilize the car. And so it's those little things that these teams, they find these things, and then it takes a conversation with NASCAR and a week or two of this stuff happening, and NASCAR says, hold on, we're not doing this anymore. That's not fair. So illegal body modification could have been anything. And if I remember correctly, his car was damaged during qualifying, round 1 of qualifying. They could have simply made some sort of a change that NASCAR said, we don't like that. Shame on you. We're going to make you change it to this, and we're going to call it an illegal body modification, and now you're starting in the back. So because I heard this all night. I don't know if you noticed. I was a bit fired up on thanks to that lube tube at Quaker Steak and Lube. I had no filter on Sunday night when these people were talking about Jimmie's championship. He's a cheater and yada yada yada. And his car passed. I mean, it's at some point in time we're gonna end up saying, "Man, it was so great to watch him during his peak when he was so good." And we've all watched history. I never thought, while I've been a fan, that I would ever see anybody reach 7 championships. The guy didn't just do it over his career. He did it 5 times in a row. Took a year, 2 years off, won his 6th. Took a year, 2 years off, won his 7th. He could end up, the way he's running, the way this sport goes, he could end up with 9, maybe even 10 before he retires. Because I think he's got another 5-6 years in him.
Yeah, but there is, again, so many teams right now that can win, a title. And he had, most of summer off, but they got figured out whatever it was that they couldn't find all summer for a 10-race section and put it together,
You know, I was hearing somebody talk about how they really started to turn it around when Jeff Gordon got back in that 88. And he only raced a couple of races, but then he started sitting out in the pit boxes with all the teams and started watching the crew. And they said that he made some contributions that really helped turn Hendrick around.
Well, it could be. I mean, Jeff's been around a long time, and he's a smart guy.
Absolutely.
He got 4 titles. He's not stupid.
We'll talk more about Earnhardt coming up in Turn 4 when we talk silly season notes as we head into the off-season for NASCAR. Silly season in full swing with a lot of announcements earlier this week. But another one I wanted to talk about was Tony Stewart's retirement. It was a really cool thing they did for Tony when they had the big flag being towed behind the truck pre-race, and Tony went out and took a lap around, and NBC had his on-car camera as a live feed the entire race, so you could sit and ride with him the entire time. There was a lot of really cool things that were done that day that was really kind of a nice send-off for Tony.
Well, and I also thought another retirement that happened was Brian Scott.
Yeah.
And I also thought it was nice of him to let Tony have his day.
Yeah.
You know, Brian didn't make a bunch of headlines or anything, and I was reading an article with it today, and he just said, he goes, I didn't even go talk to Tony. He goes, guys deal with this in their own way. He goes, we'll sit down and talk in a couple weeks.
All right, let's take a break. We'll come back in turn number 2. We're going to talk about winning 7, Toyota winning their first, and so much more. We'll be back
Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs has taken a page out of IMCA's rulebook and gone great. These brand new low-emission engines will still have you white-knuckling it all through the Metro's fastest indoor facility. Joe's Karting is now friendly for all skill levels with their brand new Honda-powered engines. It's time to get to Joe's today and find out what drivers like Jack Dover, Shaylee Bate, and Andrew Kosiski have known for years. Located in Council Bluffs and online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K.
We're hooked up in Turn 2 and still showing the green flag on the front stretch.
Welcome back to the front stretch. Heading into turn number 2. We do appreciate everybody joining us today. A lot coming in the next couple of weeks. The NASCAR season may have wrapped up, but the front stretch, we roll on year-round.
As you cover.
We are working on finalizing the Legends of the Dirt series. Again, we'd have planned on doing the Bill Rick Memorial today and then doing the Legends of the Dirt series kickoff next week, but everything's running just a little bit behind schedule. So Bill Rick Memorial Show is going to be next weekend. We'll probably do some silly season conversation in there and talk a little bit about the shows to come, and then we'll kick off the Legends of the Dirt series on December, is that the 11th? Yeah, December 11th. So we'll kick it off a week late, but we'll get all those interviews in. We've got a good list ready to go already. We are working on getting Donnie Schatz, but I have voiced my opinion of him in the past. We'll see if that happens. Donnie's a very busy guy. I'm not taking that against him. He could just be a little bit nicer to some people.
Well, we're switching teams and everything, so that's
Yeah.
A whole nother deal there too.
Donnie's not.
Oh, he's not switching teams.
Donnie's sticking with Stuart Haas.
Yeah.
But he is preparing for the Chili Bowl in January. So we're kind of hoping to get him to air that in early January to get ready for that Chili Bowl. But we'll see what happens. I know that even though it's the off season, these guys have a lot of trade shows they're going to and a lot of different things. Plus, it's the off season. They, as much as I would love to get an interview with them, I understand that it's the off season. They want to spend some time with their family.
Yeah, they got sponsor obligations and stuff like that they've got to fulfill. So.
Right. Johnson wins 7. We could talk about it. It's been talked about all week long. The run for 7. I never thought I would see it, but just the fact that they've done it with one sponsor while he's been at one organization and he's had one crew chief, it really talks about the longevity of those guys.
Well, he's had other crew chiefs, but because the one crew chief
not
bent the
in
rules.
he's never been he's only had Chad Knaus as his crew chief in the Cup Series.
No, he had Darian Grubb.
Oh,
Darian
you're
Grubb
okay.
took him
You're
to
right.
the Daytona 500
You're
win,
right. Because Johnson was suspended. My mistake.
Technically, he's
Knaus.
had others. He's only
True.
had one crew chief.
True. But even the friction and the times that NASCAR media has said, is this the breakup of the great crew chief driver combination with Johnson and Knaus? When they have little tiffs on the radio, it's amazing that they're still able to sit back and say, we've got a good thing here. Let's stick with it and let's keep going. But there was actually articles that came out that day or that week of Homestead of last week during Homestead that Rick Hendrick had actually considered at one point in time, maybe it's time to split up the band and try something new, which was really shocking.
Yeah.
That it was that bad. That, and not really to say that bad. It wasn't like I'm trying to think of like the Guns N' Roses, where the band members just hated each other, but that it got to be that bad that they actually considered splitting up a combo that had gotten them 6 titles, more than most organizations have.
Well, things grew stale. There was a lot of change and a lot of frustration on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Jimmy's kind of blaming Chad, man, you're not giving me the best piece, and Chad's going, well, you're not giving me the best effort. And
you hear exactly. You nailed that on the head, because you hear that on the radio when Chad would chime in and say, "Hey Jimmy, maybe you slide up just a little bit in the middle of turn 4 and try to get a little bit more runoff." And then Chad would come back and say, "You know what, man? Let me do my job. You do your job, and I'll do my job." Yeah. But in the end, he's just trying to help. He's just saying, "Hey, let's try this," because Chad's clearly, I think, easily, and this isn't. I don't think I'm just saying this just because they're fresh off 7. I think he's easily the smartest guy in the pits. He understands how these cars work. He understands how to massage the car a little bit to get so much out of it. He knows how to handle his driver. He knows how to work with his crew. I think he's one of the smartest guys there.
Well, he's definitely got the car down.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, he's very innovative, and from what I understand, puts in a ton of hours at the shop.
Yeah.
You know, he's probably playing with all kinds of simulations and stuff like that. When he makes a change to the car, he knows what it's going to do.
Yeah.
And that's just because he's done this now for so long, and they prepare for this, you know. And he also learned from Ray Everham, who was very good at all of this. And Ray was the first one that started setting races up backwards.
Yeah. You hear this all the time, and I hear from Steve Letarte when we're listening to the NBC broadcast. You hear from Ray Evernham. Easily the hardest working guy at Hendrick Motorsports is Chad Knaus.
Yeah.
He is there before everyone else, and he is there after. And it doesn't matter if they've won 5 in a row, if they haven't won for 20 races. He is working his tail off, and he is constantly making sure that they have everything buttoned up. And you know, it would be great to be able to open up that world once in a while and be able to expose the fans to what a crew chief goes through, because it's not just overseeing to make sure the car is set up right. It's the little details of making sure that the crew knows where all the bolts are at, the wrenches are at, so that when something happens, when a fender gets bent, they don't have to think what to fix. They know what to fix. They know to jump right in there and not just what to fix, how to fix it. Because again, like you said, he knows that these little things you do to that front fender will give him an advantage. Well, the fender's damaged. Let's manipulate it a little bit and see if we can get away with it from NASCAR. Most of the times you can't. Sometimes you can't, and you get hit with an illegal body modification penalty. You make the change, you go to the back. But that's the kind of stuff that has made him so good.
Well, and if anybody remembers last year when we did in our Legends of the Dirt series, we talked about Bob Trostel, who was, he was the man with sprint cars. And was it Shane Stewart we were talking? No, it wasn't Shane Stewart. Who were we talking with?
Shane Carlson?
There you go. Shane Carlson. That's who it was.
Okay.
That's who we were talking with. And he said, I'd be at the track and I'd say, well, let's try and do this. He goes, it didn't work last time. Why would we try it again?
How many times have we heard Legends of the Dirts, these guys that we're interviewing, and they've all said the same thing? Championships are won at the shop.
Absolutely.
And Jack Dover even said it. He said, listen, it's the off season, but I want to go out there and I want to win 20 races in 2017. I'm going to start working on it right now. And we're not taking time off for the holidays. We're not taking time off in the off season to relax and go vacation. I'm working in the shop right now to make sure I'm ready to go day one of the start of the season and we hit the ground running. These are all cliches that we've heard in sports so many times, but easily in racing, if you want to be good at what you do, you can't take the off season off. You have to continue to work in the shop. Monday, after you're done at the race weekend, you're back in the shop getting things done, getting things cleaned up, researching what you did right, what you did wrong, this kinds of stuff. That's the stuff that wins championships.
And I've heard from several people that Jimmy got lucky. Yeah, but if you go into any racing garage, you can ask any crew chief, any car owner, any driver, and ask them what it means to get lucky, and they'll say that's when preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah, and I hate this argument. Well, Jimmy wouldn't have won 7 if he didn't have Chad. Well, no kidding.
Chad probably. Well, I can say Chad still might have won 7 because I think anybody can get in that car and go to the front. I really do.
I don't know if I agree with that. That's one of those intangibles we'll never really know, but I don't know if I completely... I think Chad would have probably 3 or 4 with another driver, but I think just the way they push each other and they work so well together. The personalities fit well.
Jimmy won the 500 with Darian Grubb. He didn't win that with Chad.
Right.
So...
it's in this sport as high level as NASCAR is. And I always get a kick out of this. People talk about like Danica or Brian Scott who can't make it up into the top 15 or whatever. They're still a lot better than 99% of other race car drivers out there. How many open wheel, IndyCar, USAC, whatever drivers have we seen come into this sport and they've done nothing? They can't get the feel of these cars, and it's, you talk about on like the late model series that Joe Koziski runs for the Malvern Bank Super Late Models, and how a winner's advantage can be erased in probably 2 or 3 races. In NASCAR, a leader's advantage, and I say leader over winner because it will change over a green flag stop. Those teams will figure out what you're doing, and they'll change your cars to do the same thing, and then all of a sudden your advantage is gone.
But they've got to be in a good spot to start with.
Yeah.
They can't be, they can't have really missed the setup and be 2 laps down.
That's another thing that you always hear about Jimmie Johnson's crew is that when he rolls that car off at the end of the race, when they're standing in victory lane, you hear the other competitors say he was fast on Thursday. Yeah. He was fast on Friday. He was fast on Saturday. He was fast all the time. They roll off the hauler fast, which reduces the amount of stuff they have to do at the track because now they're not chasing the track. They're not chasing the competitors. They're leading the way.
Well, and that's one of the things that's great about having a 4-car team, is you've got a lot of information because now when they go testing and stuff, they can break the testing up, and as long as the crew chiefs are all being, up and up with each other and sharing all the information like they're supposed to. Hey, yeah. I'm sure there's if this would have come down to like I did over at the Gibbs side with Carl and Kyle racing for the title, I don't think their crew chiefs talked much this week. I really don't.
Well, I suspect that they may have talked a little bit leading up to race day, but then after that, it's a single man organization. After that, we're going to work with each other, but then at some point in time, we've got to let go of each other's hands, and somebody's got to go out and win this championship. And it was really cool to see Carl after he wrecked to say, I just hope Kyle goes out there and gets it. I hope Kyle can go out there and get it. Because, it just goes to show that despite the fact they're competitors, they're still friends, they're teammates, they're trying to help each other win.
Yeah, despite the fact that he stuffed him at Richmond.
All right, let's take a break. We'll come back at turn number 3. We got a special interview for you. We sat down with Wade Unger at Knoxville Raceway during the 410 Nationals and talked to him about the Ultimate Sprint Car Tour. Listen, it's starting to get a little chilly out there. Trust me, in about a month, you're going to wish you'd have taken our word and gone and bought this thing. There's some outdated conversation in there, but for the most part, there's some golden nuggets that you're going to want to listen to. We'll be back here on the front stretch.
Joe's Karting is giving away a Hammerhead ATV to one of its members on December 17th. All you have to do is get to Joe's and do some racing. Purchase a 16-lap Hammerhead race for $20 plus tax and you're in. On December 17th, Joe's will open the registration box and one lucky customer will win a Hammerhead GTS 150 or a Hammerhead Torpedo. Get to joeskarting.com for more details and rules. It's time to get to Joe's Karting and find out what all your friends already know.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the front stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Feather the brake and get back to the gas. Dan and Dirk are headed into turn 3 on the front stretch.
Sitting in a media center at Knoxville Raceway for the 56th annual. How many times, by the way, have you had to practice the title for this race?
Yes, it's interesting to say in 5-hour Knoxville Nationals, isn't it? Because you don't say 5-hour energy, you just say 5-hour energy, and then you don't say shot or protein or anything like that. Right. So I think I've stuffed it up a few times, actually. No offense to the good folk at 5-hour energy, but I'm pretty sure I have stuffed it up.
Well, and it's a long one because not only do you have 5-hour energy, but you also got Knoxville you got to get in there, of course. You need to get the times of races we've ran, and then you got to get the Casey's General Store in there.
And Toyota and FEP as well. So I leave that to Johnny and Tony. They're the pros for that sort of stuff. I just sort of say, is anyone having a good time here? My job's easy.
The voice you're hearing is of Wade Unger, who is the infield reporter at Knoxville Raceway for the weekly races, also for the Knoxville Nationals, because you do such a good job during the weekly racing. But then I don't know if you've noticed by the sultry sound of his voice, but he's got a little bit of Aussie in him.
Sultry, I like that. Never heard it being called sultry before. Yeah, this is I'm trying to think. Actually, I've been coming to America since 92. So it's like 92, 94, 95, 96, 98, 99, 2000, 2004, 2007, 15, and 16. So, yeah, it gets in your blood, doesn't it, once you come to a place like this?
Really does. So a couple of questions before we get started and actually talk about this race and what you guys have going on in January that racing fans need to definitely take advantage of. But I don't know how many times you get asked this, but does the water actually flow?
Yes.
Okay.
In the toilet? Is that what you're going to ask? Yes.
Well, yeah, because I had a sprint car driver friend that went down there, and he said it didn't.
No, it does.
Okay. Of course, you can only take so much of what a driver says for truth. Yeah.
No, that's true. And the light switches, we flip the switch down to turn it on, not up.
What? Really?
Yes.
We had that in our old farmhouse, and I went and rewired everything because that's just up is on.
The really hard thing is not to get run over walking across the road, because it's such an instinctive thing when you walk in Australia that you look to the left.
Yeah.
And then you don't really look to the right. And even when you're walking down a footpath, you tend to walk on the left-hand side of the footpath. So you constantly... I don't know if you remember that scene from Crocodile Dundee when he's walking down the street of New York and everyone's just smashing into him. It's exactly the same thing. But I would rather walk into people than drive into them.
Speaking of that, do you carry a knife under your shirt?
No, mate.
A Bowie knife? That's a huge... No?
No.
You ever been tempted to? Did you ever
I got an iPhone and I'm pretty deadly with that.
Okay.
But no knife, no.
So the other one is that I've always been a sucker for an Australian accent for a female. Do you find...
Newton-John?
Do you find there's a basis for a rock band here in America, and just listen to her talk? I mean... Come on, you couldn't get any better than a female rocker that played the bass and had an Australian accent. Do you find the luck with the ladies is a little bit easier because they just spoon over your Australian accent?
Over here, you mean?
Yeah.
It does make it...
Your sultry accent?
Yeah. What worries me is you're a guy that said that to me. Maybe I'm doing it the wrong way. Look, it definitely... It's actually more of a language barrier than you would think. When I announce, I talk really slowly because you just have to be so clear. Mm-hmm. It's funny. My 16-year-old son, it's his first trip to America, and he's been noticing American girls a bit, as you do when you're 16. And I think the comment was, Dad, they're even hotter with an accent, aren't they? So he's picked up on... the finer points of... and we just went to Mississippi.
Okay.
So what's different in Australia is we do have pockets of different accents.
Okay.
But not as pronounced as you do,
Oh, they're thick and it's amazing.
The accents, you mean?
Yeah. The Northeast is so different than the South, and the Midwest is so clear. And you get a little one over on the East Coast or the West Coast.
Well, I mean, we went to Mississippi a couple of days ago, and the drivers' meeting, and the guy said, I don't want you guys to argue with what I'm saying, but if you're going to stick your arm out the window... Well, that ain't going to happen. And it was just like, it's just like being in Forrest Gump, I spoke to a late model driver from Georgia, and he and I were talking, and I think people from Mississippi were confused because, people from Georgia talk a little bit different, and people from Australia. So the beautiful part is we're treated so much better because we're Aussies. If you ever have seen the movie World's Fastest Indian, it's got Sir Anthony Hopkins in it, and it's a true story about a New Zealand guy that came across the race in the Bonneville Salt Flats for Speed Week. And he rode an old Indian motorcycle to a world record. And he arrived with nothing in his bags, an old bike, and no help and no money. And the people of Bonneville, of the speed competition, just took him under their wing. And it is exactly the same as we're treated when we come to America.
Is it really that hospitable?
Oh, massively. And that's why we do the same thing back in Australia. If you guys come down to see us, we'll make sure that you stay with someone, that we look after you, that we get you somewhere, that we get you into the races. And I think we're brothers in arms. We certainly are in a warfront situation as well. But I think we're bonded by our passion for sprint cars.
Well, it's passion for motorsports. I don't care if you're a drag racer or a late model racer. The racing community helps its own.
Well, look, without any doubt, I think Americans, as an announcer for me, Americans are such great audiences to work with because they'll just do anything. Their sole purpose is to have a good time. And so when I say to someone, I want you all to get up and do the twist, there's a good chance they're going to do it because they're just there to have a good time. Whereas Aussies are a little bit more cynical. We're a bit more like, oh, come on, mate, sit down, shut up. Let's just put the racing on. Whereas here, everyone's just like, woo, woo!
Yeah.
Let's do it. So that's why I love these audiences.
I thought it was kind of cool. I said to him on Friday night, the cell phone thing that you do. I'd never seen that before, and it was just kind of a simple concept, but I thought, that looks really cool. And it really is when you're sitting on the front stretch and all those stands in the back stretch and everyone's waving and you're going to the left and you're trying to shake them all about. And I thought, oh, yeah, that's what I like saying. I like that. And it was just cool to watch the lights go back and forth.
Like any great idea that was stolen.
Yeah.
From Robbie Williams.
Okay.
In one of his concerts. I saw it happen several years ago, and we tried it first at the Warrnambool Classic. And we actually do something as well down there where we get... Now, I made the mistake of calling it a Mexican wave here.
Okay.
It's called a Mexican wave in Australia, but we changed it to wave after I got reminded it might not be the best way to refer to it here, particularly not if Donald Trump was here, I guess. And
he's okay with insulting people.
Yeah, yes, good point. But we often get the wave to go around in line with the polka.
Yeah.
So they'll do 2 laps. We'll get the audience to do 2 laps at the same speed as the cars are, and it just ramps everything up and makes it all more interactive. You know.
Well, it's really fun because there can be long durations between races, and so it's amazing to me some tracks don't play music, they don't have contests, they don't do anything, and that is a real time for the younger audience that you're trying to get interested in this sport to pull out their phones and become detached from what's right in front of them. But if they're doing little things like just getting your cell phones out and turning the flashlight on, it becomes interactive again, and you're willing to put your phone away and just keep on going on what's going on in front of you.
Well, you tell me, Dan, is it motor racing or is it entertainment?
I think it's both.
It is both, but I put entertainment before motor racing.
Yeah.
Because I think ultimately, if we just say it's motor racing, we are a shot duck. Our future for this sport is limited because let's face it, if you break it down, and I say this with the utmost respect, sprint car racing is loud, it's dusty, it's dirty, it often finishes very late. It is not the kind of place you want to take someone for their first date unless they really have a bit of motor savviness about them. So we have to look at it. We are a limited appeal product. We are a thin edge of the wedge, niche sport. So we need to do as much as we can to keep up with the baseball, the basketball, the football, and their entertainment as well.
So you're meaning to tell me that girls don't like dirt in their beer? Is that what you're trying to explain to me?
The ones that do, I like. But the reality is that most corporates, you're going to go to a cup race or, a football game or something with a corporate box, and you're going to take your wife along or your children. They're going to sit in a nice corporate suite that's air conditioned. It's got high back plastic chairs at all the venues you go to. There's no dust. It finishes at a palatable time for the children. You usually get public transport there. That's a concept that's fairly lost on most dirt tracks throughout the world. So we're competing against an entertainment medium in the main sector that's moving so far forward, and we remain, and we need to because it's the essence of what we do. But dirt is actually the thing that holds us back as a sport.
I agree. And one question we ask a lot of our drivers and people that are involved with the sport is, what would be one thing you would change about dirt racing? And I was really surprised. Scott Bloomquist, who will be at Knoxville in about a month for the Late Model Nationals, said, I would find a way to stop the dirt from getting into the crowd. Whether it be some sort of mesh fence, something to be able to, you still feel the cars, you still feel the rumble, but that dirt isn't coming over and getting into, because it's a bit of an inconvenience to leave the track feeling like a dust rag.
And probably the irony in all of that is that the best races always happen on slick racetracks. Mm-hmm. Right? They always happen when the track is dusty and it's got that crust on the top. When it's juiced up and everyone's to the floor and everyone's the same speed, you don't get that sense of side by side. And I often have this discussion with Australian drivers, and they go, leave the racetrack, just leave it, let us blow the top off it. Oh, it was a great race. I go, you know what, it could be the best race in the world, but if the fans can't see it, what's more frustrating? It's more frustrating to sit there and try to see through the dust and see the best race you've ever seen, or is it frustrating to sit there and watch where you get hit with a bit of clay and watch processional racing? So it's a frustration for both sides. But the dust issue, what Bloom is saying is correct. Would I want to see us race on bitumen? Hell no. What is our biggest asset is also our biggest enemy.
Yeah, the thing with the dust and whatnot off the dry slick tracks, it's usually not dirt, it's tire rubber.
Yeah, look, that's entirely possible. I mean, I remember going to a track in upstate New York many years ago to watch a URC sprint car race, and the big block modifieds were on there, and I was stunned to see people when the sprint cars come up got up and went and got a hot dog. because it's modified territory. But we literally could feel the dust, like dirt, falling on our shoulders. I remember walking out of there like an Al Jolson movie. It was just phenomenal. And the promoters, you have to start looking at it and go, we qualify cars at 5 o'clock in the blazing heat. We run endless heat races, and it's a spread out, drawn out process at a lot of speedways, and we're baking the racetrack in between, and the drivers don't want you to water or grade the track. So it's a bit of a catch-22, isn't it?
All right. Let's talk to you about what we're actually sitting down here for, and that's you have worked with Volusia Speedway, I believe, correct? Or Valvoline Speedway.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes.
And you guys have put together this Ultimate Sprint Car Tour. It's something that I have a travel agent for a sister.
Yeah, right.
And I really wish that she would get on board and do something like this to offer it to people. But it's a January 9th through January 23rd experience, I think, is the best way you talk about it. When you purchase this package, you can either purchase a 14 or a 21-day tour, which includes flight, accommodations, sightseeing in Australia for some of the big stuff you were talking.
Yep.
I think I was reading that you get to go see the Sydney Opera House.
Yeah, Harbour Bridge, Bondi Beach, kangaroos, Blue Mountains.
And you get to see the best of Australian sprint car racing.
Yeah, look, and you'll see Kyle Larson, you'll see Casey Kane, you'll see Brian Brown, you'll see Dominic Scelzi. There'll be at least 10 to 20 of the best Americans down there at the same time. The thing is, if I had $1 for every time an American said to me, I've always wanted to go down there. It's my bucket list. And I said, but you got to do it. And it's the perception of the distance and the cost of the airfare, I think, that bends most people's minds. And that's why we've gone for 14 days, because I think most Americans get 2 weeks vacation, don't they, as a general rule? So we've done a 3-week as well, but 2 weeks will give you Parramatta, the Warrnambool Classic, a couple other tracks as well, and we're going to coach you everywhere, like into a big bus, so nice air-conditioned comfort. So you'll go to a lot of different places and see that. And I'm looking across the room, I'm seeing Brad Doty over there, and Brad came down to our country in 2000 and spent about a month with us and announced down there, and people just fell in love with him like everyone does. And I remember him being blown away by the enormity of our country. You know, it's as big as America in some respects, and we've only got 25 million people. So there's a lot of wasted space. Everyone lives on the coastlines. And when you guys come down, I think you'll see that our emphasis is completely on the spectator. It is completely based on big 40-metre giant video screen in the centre of the racetrack, live pit reporting every race to the screen every time. Music videos, YMCA for the kids. We drive our whole show towards the fans. That's what the difference is. Yeah,
that was kind of Dirk and I were talking about this as we were preparing for the interview, and he said, how do we find a way to do this? We got to get down there and do this. You're absolutely right. I have always wanted to travel to Australia because, again, I'm a sucker for the language, so I'd just be in heaven down there, just listening to all the accents. And I always love traveling and experiencing new cultures. And what you're talking about with the entertainment value of it, it'd be really interesting to see that, and hopefully maybe bring some tips back to Omaha, and I could even implement some of the stuff at I-80 Speedway to make the Silver Dollar Nationals even that much bigger.
As a general rule, we ooh and ah over everything about America. You know, the size of the haulers, the car counts that you guys get, the spectators, just the way that, you know, Knoxville does it better than anyone with their entertainment, with their social media package, all that stuff. And Eldora's always been very good at that stuff too. So we've always oohed and ahed at that sort of stuff, but we've always felt that it's more for the racer than it is for the race fan as a general rule. And that comes back to announcers as well, as because we as announcers have a big responsibility to make that entertainment as well. This is the mecca of what we do, and it's an honour and a privilege to come here and do this, but it's very different to how we do it. It's not better in Australia, it's just different. So what you guys do here suits the American audience, but I know that I think 9 times out of 10 an American race fan will say to me, you made me laugh. They just want to have a good time. Yeah. And I think that's where we sometimes get a bit serious about it all. Yes, don't get me wrong, you still got to commentate it and give it its cred, but you got to have a good time. People are spending too much money and sitting up there way too long not to have a laugh.
Right. Talk about some of the other drivers. You were talking about some of the Americans. What about some of the Australians that are here in America showing the Americans that Australian drivers really can compete, really can win? Now they're going to go to their home turf. Who are some of the drivers they can expect to see?
Oh, well, James McFadden, Jamie Veal, Kerry Madsen, Ian Madsen, Brooke Tatnell, Max Dumsney, all those guys that are iconic names in our sport. They race. They can race James and J-Mac and Veely can now run up to 50 races in our season and come here and run 50 races.
Wow!
So they're now doing 100 races a year. So they're doing the old school World of Outlaws. Remember when the Outlaw schedule was 100 nights?
Yeah.
So effectively, Jamie and J-Mac in particular, they're our professional drivers. They're not getting out of a race car. So by the time these guys come back when they go back to Australia in October, November, they've run 40 or 50. They've run effectively a full season in our winter. So they're just so sharp. And it used to be that America would come down and kick our butts and we'd come over here and America would kick our butts here. But the field is levelling up a bit now. We've got a lot of great wealthy team owners who put a lot of resources into it, and the field is definitely levelling now.
How excited would you be if an Aussie won the Knoxville Nationals?
I was talking to my boss about half an hour ago because Liam and I are flying out at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning from Des Moines, which is exceptionally poor management from his father. And Steve said, well, you'll be driving to the airport drunk if an Aussie wins it. You know that, don't you? And I said, Steve, right. No, because we don't encourage that sort of drinking driving. But it would change the face, I think, of this event as well. And I think, to be honest, it wouldn't be a bad thing if it happened for American sprint car racing as much as it would be for Australian racing, because it needs new heroes. It needs good guys and bad guys. I personally think it would be great if Donnie could win 10. I really do. And I think we're blessed that we've seen Kinzer in the previous era and now Donnie in this one. I know there's a lot of Donnie haters, but you have to sit back and admire just how damn good he really is.
Yeah.
And a lot of people lose I think, focus on that. And it's a bit ironic. I was walking past Steve Kinzer a couple of times on the last couple of nights. He's sitting in the front of this little quad while Craig's getting his car ready, and people just walking right past him. And I remember, when Donnie bends over to do up his shoelace here, and there's 50 cameras there. Well, when Steve rolled into this place back in the day, he was surrounded by paparazzi and media, So the times have changed. If Kerry or Jamie or Brooke or any of those sort of guys could win this race, it would change the face of Australian, but also American racing.
Is the Aussie a big thing down there?
Yeah.
Or is that something that's just kind of like, let's humor those Americans with this little chant?
Well, it's funny. If you get a chance, ask Brad Doty about it as well, because we got Brad to do that to the crowd at Warrnambool. And it's a war cry for Australians. And it's funny because it's quite simple. It's just Aussie, 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 oi, oi, oi. And you do it again. Aussie, 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 oi, oi, oi. Then you go Aussie, oi, Aussie, oi. Aussie, 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 oi, oi, oi. That's when Americans get a bit lost.
Okay.
Because it's kind of syncopated, right? There's a bit of a chorus and a verse in there. And it's funny because I've had a few people say to me in the last couple of days, are you going to do Aussie, Aussie, Aussie? And it works huge in Australia. But I'm kind of half tempted to try and roll it out tonight because I think Americans like being part of it.
Oh, we do. I'd love to. Anywhere I'm at, if anybody ever screams Aussie, 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 I always stop whatever I'm doing and yell, oi, oi, oi. And I have no connection to it whatsoever, but it's fun.
Well, particularly tonight when you've got two Australians on the second row, and you look at Kerry, who didn't put a wheel wrong last year. It's just that Donnie didn't make a mistake either. Mm-hmm. There's a legitimate chance that and look, I think we've got 3 Aussies in the A already and 3 Aussies in the B already. So there's every chance we could have up to half a dozen guys. And that was unheard of many, many years ago. So I think I should roll it out tonight. Thank you. I appreciate that, you guys.
I would endorse it strongly.
Okay, I think I should. And if it sucks, I'll look for you.
Yes. If it sucks,
If it's
blame Chris
crickets?
Krug.
Yes.
Okay, that's always the rule on the show. We always blame Chris Krug when something goes wrong.
If there's just crickets, right, and I go Aussie, 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 it's just like stone silence. I'm coming for you boys, all right?
He's just Dan Taylor to the infield. Get your ass in here. All right, so we're talking to you for the Ultimate Sprint Car Tour. Fans, I strongly suggest you take advantage of this. Listen, if there's any time in the Midwest you want to get away,
Yes, it's January.
it's always January, and you guys did it perfect. It's the 9th through the 23rd. There's always that week of sub-zero temperatures. I believe it would be 32 Celsius?
Yeah, so 0 for us is your 30.
Right.
So if you're 30 degrees, is 0 for us.
Well, there's always a week in January that it gets below 0 Fahrenheit for us, which would be 32 Celsius for you, or would it be the other way? Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, it matches right there, right? That's where the two come together, and then, okay.
Yes.
I never learned the Celsius.
Me
you can
either.
tell. But there's always a foot of snow, and that's usually when I go to Mexico, but I'm going to talk about maybe coming down for this because it would be a lot of fun to do this. There's a 14 or 21-day tour. You can get more information at valvolineraceway.com/tour.
Yeah.
And get all the information there. See some great race car drivers. And frankly, get out of the Midwest for 2 weeks. Don't do a staycation. People talk about that because they want to keep the touring revenue in Iowa. To hell with it.
Get warm.
So stupid.
Get sunburned.
Get out.
See some hot girls on the beach without any tops on.
You got the good-looking girls down there, right?
We have these things called white pointers, Dan.
Okay.
And white pointers are just this part of the body that's now white as opposed to the rest of the body, which is brown.
Okay.
So it's not a shark.
By the way, we're on radio, but I think when he talks about this part of the body, you can figure out what he's talking about because it's got to stay covered up according to some social rules.
Correct.
Anyways.
At least on the street.
Wade Unger, thank you so much for joining us, bud.
Aussie, Aussie, Aussie.
Oi, oi, oi.
Are you looking to book your next outing? Look no further than Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Located just north of Bass Pro Shop, Joe's Karting can handle outings of well over 100 plus people. Bachelor parties, corporate outings, team building, birthday parties, and much more. Give Buddy a call today and reserve your outing. Joe's will even work with local restaurants to cater your event. Book yours today at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's and find out what everyone already knows.
It's checkers or wreckers as we enter turn 4 on the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs.
Welcome back to the front stretch. Got a quick turn 4 because we had such a great conversation with Wade Unger. Let's talk about some silly season notes. It was announced this week. Greg Biffle is not going to be returning to Roush Fenway Racing after 19 years in the 16 car. Actually, I think it was 14 years in the 16 car and 19 years with the organization.
A truck championship and won back then a Busch championship for Roush.
I guess I'm not really surprised. There are going to be a lot of these changes coming for Roush Fenway because they've struggled mightily over the last couple of years. And
he made some comments. What was it about Kansas or so? It'd been 6 weeks ago, roughly, and talked about some things maybe getting shook up at the end. I mean, there's some rumors out there that he's bought in on half a team that used to be the 7 team.
Mm-hmm.
And would be a la Tony Stewart driving for himself going forward.
Right.
I don't know if he is prepared to do that, but, if he's got the money and if his new partner thinks he can do it, then more power to him.
To elaborate on that a little bit, Tommy Baldwin Racing, who was the owner of the number 7 car, announced after Phoenix that they were ceasing operations. I believe the 7 was racing, but they were racing under the Levine family banner that day. Because the Levine family had bought the 7's charter. And I believe in order to continue the charter, that car needed to be in the race that day. So Levine family, who owns the 95, right?
Right.
Yeah, they own the 95. They purchased that 7. Now, rumors I heard while I was at Kansas running around was that Michael McDowell is done in the 95. Since then, I've heard, no, I'm staying in the 95 for Michael McDowell, but that Greg Biffle will go over and race the 7 for Levine Biffle Racing, and they're going to get another driver for the 95. Now, maybe that means Michael McDowell's re-signed and he's going to be staying with the 95. But also falling out this week, Robbie Reiser, who was with the organization for the last, I believe, year or so, also been released from his contract at Roush Fenway Racing. He was the general manager of the operation, trying to get that ship righted and get it back up into contention. He's been let go, and then Zest announced after the Homestead race that they would not be returning to the 17. So things looking kind of glim for RFR as far as what they've got going on for 2017.
Well, Zest has been around for a long time. They were a Busch sponsor with Matt Kenseth back in the early 2000s, and I think maybe even 2099, all the way back there.
Yeah, and
Robbie Reiser has spent a ton of time with Roush. It wasn't just a one-year deal. He's been at Roush for a long time. He used to be Matt Kenseth's crew chief. I think he was a crew chief when he won the title.
I thought he was let go and then brought back like a year or so ago.
Well, I don't know if he was let go. He might have gone to another organization with another position and then come back. That could be. Yeah, he was a crew chief for Roush for a long time.
Zest's statement made me really think that they were leaving Roush Fenway Racing, not NASCAR.
Well,
so we may see them land with another organization. Maybe they're going with Biffle. Maybe that next shoe drops and they're going over to the 7 or the 95 team. Who knows? But yeah, so Biffle out there. Good news for Dale Earnhardt Jr. He does expect to do some testing, and he expects to be back at Daytona. And I also want to talk about this briefly. As NASCAR has made a modification to the rules about a month to 2 months ago stating that any driver coming back from injury is allowed to do testing. Now, we know that about a year ago, NASCAR banned all testing as a money-saving measure because it just costs way too much to send these teams to the tracks, to open the tracks up, to do the tests all day long. It's just a money-saving measure. We're not doing any more testing at NASCAR-sanctioned tracks. But they'll allow injured drivers or drivers that were on a medical leave to be able to do some testing. So any of you Dale Jr. fans out there that happen to have a problem with the way Kyle Busch won his 2015 championship, if Dale goes out there and starts winning races in 2017, you better damn well have a problem with the way he won it. Because NASCAR put an exemption in there for the chase drivers of a medical exemption. They put the same exemption in the testing ban for a medical exemption. So
yeah, but testing, you're getting the testing deal a little bit mixed up because they can test, they just can't go test at Atlanta
at a NASCAR sanctioned track.
Well, no, at a Cup Series track.
Yeah.
They could come to I-80 and test, and it's NASCAR sanctioned.
That's true.
So they can go to a smaller track. If they're going to run Bristol or something, they go to a track that's as close to a bowl as what they can find that, will simulate Bristol and go run there, but yeah.
And for the record, I like this rule. I think Dale needs to be back in the car, and I think NASCAR needs to see the injured driver that's been out of the car for so long, for a prolonged period. I think they need to see how they adjust to being back in the car because these things are so on an edge that it takes a little while to get back into it. You don't want to just throw Dale back in the car at the 500 and say you haven't raced for, 10, 15 races. Go race our most dangerous race. They want you want them to this is a good idea. I'm just saying, if you got a problem with what Kyle Busch got into the chase and won his championship, you better have a problem with Dale Jr. also. So let's go on our final point. We're running out of time today, but rumors have it, and I think I'm hearing it's a done deal that Monster Energy is the new sponsor for NASCAR, for the Cup Series.
It wouldn't surprise me. They're huge. I mean, they're sponsoring just about everything out there.
They're simply waiting until after the awards ceremony in Vegas so that Sprint can have its last of the 2016 contract, its last push, and then they'll announce Monster Energy as the next title. I've also heard Coca-Cola, Mobil 1, and Kroger grocery brands, they're pretty popular down in the South, that they're contenders, but I've heard that the Monster Energy deal is done.
Well, Kroger's right here in Omaha. That's Baker's supermarket.
Right, it's owned by
Kroger
Baker's,
family.
but Kroger's is in the South. Instead of it being called Baker's or Hy-Vee, it's a Kroger, and they actually use that family
correct.
name.
And I mean, even up through the Midwest, up through Ohio, Indiana, and all over in there, Kroger's all over the place.
It's a huge grocery chain. They've definitely got the cash to be able to spend on it, and a good product too to fit with that. But apparently, it's going to be the energy drink. So. And I don't know how NASCAR is going to take that, if it's going to be the Monster Energy Cup Series or if they're going to finally get rid of the entitlement portion of it and it's going to be the Cup Series presented by.
I don't know which they'll do.
Yeah, because I've heard that they don't want to keep changing the name every 10 years, which makes sense for marketing. You don't want to do that because then there's no branding in there. So maybe it's forever going to be the NASCAR Cup Series presented by. So we'll see what happens with there. We hope everybody enjoyed your Thanksgiving. We hope everybody enjoyed today's show. We will be back next Sunday, December 4th, to do it all over again. We'll do the Bill Rick Memorial Show, and we'll maybe even try to do some phone calls so you guys could call in while we're recording that show and tell your favorite story to Bill Rick. Be paying attention to the Front Stretch Facebook page. We'll try to schedule that in advance. We'll be back next weekend to do it all over again here on the Front Stretch.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the Front Stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Are you looking to book your next outing? Look no further than Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Located just north of Bass Pro Shop, Joe's Karting can handle outings of well over 100-plus people. Bachelor parties, corporate outings, team building, birthday parties, and much more. Give Buddy a call today and reserve your outing. Joe's will even work with local restaurants to cater your event. Book yours today at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's and find out what everyone already knows.